The unexpected anchor. The millionaire received a call, and his wife was gone. Before we start, leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from. When the story is finished, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10, and make sure to follow our channel for more stories like this. Now, sit back and enjoy every detail. Alexander. Alex Thorne adjusted his Italian silk tie while watching the Boston skyline from the glass windows of his Newbury Street office. At 30, he had built a real estate empire that made him one of the most influential men in New England. His imposing physique, dark hair perfectly slicked back, and intense green eyes commanded respect in every boardroom he entered. But on that October morning, his mind wasn't on the multi-million-dollar contracts resting on his mahogany desk. His thoughts flew to his home in the exclusive Beacon Hill neighborhood, where Layla, his wife of 2 years, was caring for Leo, their 3-week-old son. Layla Hayes. Thorne was everything Alex had ever dreamed of in a woman. A brilliant 29-year-old architect with a golden blonde mane that fell in soft waves to her shoulders and eyes as blue as the Atlantic. Her porcelain skin contrasted beautifully with her natural pink lips, and her smile had the power to light up any room. She had met Alex at a conference on sustainable urban development, where her intelligence and passion for creating spaces that improved people's lives had completely captivated him. The pregnancy had been meticulously planned. They had both decided it was the perfect time. Alex's career was consolidated. Layla had finished a major project at her architecture firm, and financially, they were more than prepared. They had converted one of the rooms in their penthouse into a dream nursery with fine wood furniture and a privileged view of the Boston Common. Alex vividly remembered the moment Layla had shown him the positive pregnancy test. Her blue eyes sparkled with emotion as she whispered, "We're going to be parents, darling." He had swept her up in his arms, twirling her in their elegant living room, both laughing and crying with happiness at the same time. The months of pregnancy had passed like a perfect dream. Alex accompanied Layla to every doctor's appointment. They had chosen every detail of the baby's room together, and he had read parenting books with the same dedication he used for his real estate market analyses. He had even slightly reduced his working hours, something his personal assistant, Carol, had considered a miracle. Leo had arrived on a rainy Tuesday in September after a long but uncomplicated delivery. Alex would never forget the moment the doctor had first placed his son in his arms. The little boy had Layla's eyes and a small crescent-shaped birthmark on his left shoulder, as if it were a special sign of destiny. "He's perfect," Alex had murmured, tears streaming down his cheeks as Layla, exhausted but radiant, watched them from the hospital bed. The first 2 weeks at home had been a whirlwind of visits, congratulations, and adjustments. Alex had taken a week off, something unheard of in his career, to be with his new family. He felt proud to be able to provide everything they needed: the best private clinic, organic baby products, a support nurse when necessary. Gradually, however, he had returned to his work routine. Important meetings couldn't wait indefinitely. Projects required his personal supervision, and investors needed his presence. After all, he thought, everything he did was for them, for Leo, for their family's future. That morning, while reviewing the blueprints for a new residential complex in Nantucket, Alex realized it had been 3 days since he had held Leo for more than 5 minutes. The thought troubled him for a moment, but he dismissed it when Carol reminded him of the meeting with the Japanese investors. His personal phone vibrated with a message from Layla. "Leo hasn't stopped crying all night. I'm exhausted." Alex frowned, but quickly texted back, "Call the nurse if you need help. I have meetings until late." He didn't know those would be the last words they would exchange before his world completely wavered. The architect's quiet despair. The quiet despair. Have you ever felt that chasing your professional dreams was pulling you away from what really mattered in your personal life? Layla set her phone on the white marble kitchen counter and felt as if she had been slapped. "Call the nurse if you need help." Alex's words echoed in her mind as Leo cried from his bassinet in the next room. She looked at herself in the reflection of the window overlooking their penthouse's private garden. Her blue eyes, once bright and full of life, now showed pronounced dark circles that concealer could no longer hide. Her golden hair, which she used to wear perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy bun. The silk robe Alex had given her during pregnancy hung loosely on her figure, which hadn't fully recovered its shape. It had been barely 3 weeks since she had given birth, but she felt as if she had aged years. The Layla who designed innovative buildings and led meetings with composure seemed to have disappeared, replaced by this version of herself she didn't recognize. A woman who hadn't left the house in days, who no longer remembered the last time she read anything other than articles about lactation and infant sleep patterns. Leo intensified his crying, that high-pitched sound that went straight through her already frayed nerves. Layla took a deep breath and walked into the baby's room, that perfect sanctuary they had created together when the future seemed so clear and manageable. "Shh, my love," she murmured, lifting her son. The tiny weight of the baby in her arms gave her a mixture of infinite love and absolute exhaustion. "Mommy's here!" But as she rocked Leo, her mind traveled to the conversation she had with Alex the night before. He had arrived past 10 p.m., smelling of the expensive cologne he wore for important meetings, with a satisfied smile for having closed another multi-million-dollar contract. "How's my little champion?" he had asked, leaning in to give Leo a quick kiss on the forehead, who was sleeping peacefully after hours of crying. "It's been a tough day," Layla had started, hoping Alex would sit beside her, ask her how she was, notice the signs of her exhaustion. But he was already checking his phone, frowning at some urgent email. "Babies cry. It's normal. I have a major presentation with the Japanese tomorrow. Could you try to keep him from crying so much at night? I need to be rested." Those words had been like a dagger to the chest. Try to keep him from crying so much, as if she had some magical control over a 3-week-old newborn, as if she hadn't spent the last 6 nights getting up every 2 hours, feeding him, changing him, comforting him, while Alex slept soundly with earplugs in. Now, as Leo finally calmed down in her arms, Layla walked to the panoramic window overlooking all of Boston. The city stretched before her like a map of possibilities that no longer belonged to her. She remembered when she used to walk those streets, visiting construction sites, meeting clients, feeling that the world was hers to conquer. Her architecture firm was on indefinite pause. She had entrusted management to her partner, Marta, but she knew some major projects were slipping away. Clients who had specifically worked with her now had to settle for alternatives. Her professional reputation, built with so much effort, was fading day by day. The doorbell startled her. It was Carol, Alex's assistant, who had come to pick up some documents he had forgotten. Right. An efficient, 42-year-old woman, always impeccably dressed, represented everything Layla had been before. Professional, independent, master of her time. "Mrs. Thorne, excuse the intrusion," Carol said, immediately noticing Layla's state. "Are you well?" It was the first time in weeks someone had truly asked how she was. Layla felt tears threaten to spill, but she held them back. What could she say? That she felt like a shadow of herself, that she loved Leo with every fiber of her being, but that she simultaneously felt overwhelmed and alone? "Just a little tired," she lied, forcing a smile. "You know how the first few months are." Carol nodded understandingly, but Layla noticed something in her gaze. Pity, recognition, The assistant had seen many wives of successful executives. She had probably witnessed similar stories. "If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me," Carol offered before leaving. And Layla realized it was the first genuine offer of help she had received in weeks. When she was alone again, Layla walked to the study she had converted into an extension of Leo's room. On her desk rested half-finished blueprints, unopened architecture magazines, and a project for a cultural center she had had to turn down because it required frequent travel to Providence. She picked up her sketchbook, where she used to capture her most creative ideas. The recent pages were filled with meaningless scribbles, drawn during long nights of nursing. But then she found something, a drawing she had done while pregnant. It was the design of a house, not a commercial building, but a home. She had written in the margin, "For when we are a complete family." The irony hit her like a cold wave. Technically, they were already a complete family. They had everything they had dreamed of: the baby, the perfect house, financial stability. But she felt more alone than ever. Her phone vibrated with a message from Alex. Meeting ran long. "We'll be late. Don't wait up." Layla looked at the message and then at Leo, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. For the first time since her son was born, a dangerous idea began to form in her mind. An idea that frightened her with its clarity and determination. Perhaps it was time for Alex to truly understand what it meant to be a father. The CEO's blind spot. The blind spot. Alex reviewed the presentation for the Japanese investors for the third time that afternoon. The numbers were perfect, the projections promising, and the design of the Nantucket residential complex represented his firm's most ambitious expansion into the Asian market. Everything had to be impeccable. On his computer screen, the glass and steel towers rose majestically against the blue Atlantic. He had worked on this project for 8 months, but now, in the final weeks before the definitive presentation, every detail required his personal attention. He couldn't afford distractions. His assistant, Carol, entered with fresh coffee and a worried expression she tried to conceal. Alex knew her well enough to notice that something was troubling her, but he chose not to ask. He had exactly 4 hours to finalize the financial proposal details. "Mr. Thorne, have you spoken to your wife this morning?" Carol asked, arranging some documents on his desk with nervous movements. Alex looked up from his papers, slightly irritated by the interruption. "Why do you ask?" "Yesterday, when I went to pick up the documents." Carol hesitated for a moment. "She seemed very tired, more than usual." Alex sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's natural, Carol. We just had a baby. All mothers go through an adjustment period." But even as he spoke those words, a small voice inside him whispered that perhaps he should have paid more attention to the signals Layla had been sending him. The increasingly short texts, the dark circles he could no longer ignore when he came home, the way she no longer told him details about her day with Leo. Carol nodded, but Alex noticed she didn't seem convinced. "Maybe you could go home a little earlier today." "Impossible. After the meeting with the Japanese, I have dinner with the local investors. It's crucial for closing the financing." Alex refocused on his documents. "Layla understands. She knows all of this is for our family, for Leo's future." What Alex didn't know was that at that very moment, Layla was sitting on their living room sofa, with Leo sleeping in his stroller beside her, making the hardest decision of her life. She had spent the night awake not only because of the baby's cries, but because of the painful clarity she had found in the hours of silence. She had reviewed every conversation, every gesture, every moment when she had subtly asked for help and been ignored or misunderstood. The letter lay written on the glass coffee table, drafted in the early hours of the morning while Leo slept one of his few deep sleeps. The words had flowed like tears held back for too long. "Alex, we planned this baby together, but I cannot do this alone. You always wanted to be a father. Now is the time to show that means truly being here." She had called Dr. Rodriguez, the pediatrician who had recommended a trusted nurse for special cases. Clara Vega was a 50-year-old woman, mother of 3, with 20 years of experience in neonatal care. Layla had hired her not as a permanent solution, but as a bridge toward the transformation she knew was necessary. "Mrs. Thorne," Clara had said over the phone with a warm but professional voice, "I understand your situation. I've seen many similar cases. Are you sure this is the right decision?" Layla had looked at Leo, who was sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the emotional earthquake unfolding around him. "I love my son more than my own life, Clara, and precisely because of that, I need to do this. His father has to truly understand what it means to be a parent." The small suitcase was packed by the door, just the essentials for 5 days in Savannah, where her older sister Sophia was waiting for her, without asking questions. Sophia had become a mother of twins 3 years ago, and had gone through her own marital crisis. She understood that sometimes it was necessary to create a crisis to save a marriage. Layla had carefully chosen the timing. Alex had that crucial meeting with the Japanese investors, something he had worked on for months. He wouldn't be able to abandon his professional responsibilities, which would force him to fully confront the family responsibilities he had been evading. At 2 p.m., Clara arrived punctually. She was a petite but firm woman, with graying hair pulled back into a practical bun and brown eyes that instantly inspired confidence. She carried a small bag with everything needed to care for Leo for the next few hours. "Everything is explained here," Layla said, handing her a folder with feeding schedules, sleep routines, emergency numbers, and detailed instructions. "Leo is a calm baby when his needs are met. Dr. Rodriguez is our emergency pediatrician." Clara reviewed the documents professionally. "Don't worry, ma'am. The little one will be perfectly cared for." Layla walked to the bassinet where Leo was sleeping. Her son looked angelic, with his little fists clenched and his soft, irregular breathing. She kissed him on the forehead, inhaling that unique baby scent that both calmed and broke her. "I'll be back soon, my love," she whispered. "This is for us, for our family." She picked up her suitcase and headed for the door, but paused for a moment to look one last time at the home she had built with Alex, the photographs of their wedding on the wall, the elegant furniture they had chosen together, the grand piano where Alex used to play for her on Sunday mornings, when they still had time for those intimate moments. Her phone vibrated. A message from Alex. "Presentation is a success. Japanese are very interested. I love you." Layla felt a mix of pride and pain. Even at that moment, Alex was thinking about work. She wrote a reply she knew he wouldn't see until later. "I love you too. That's why I'm doing this." She closed the door to their home and walked toward the elevator, knowing that when she returned, everything would have changed forever. The executive's reckoning. The reckoning. The meeting with the Japanese investors had been an absolute triumph. Alex shook hands with Hiroshi Tanaka, the CEO of the Asian Consortium, as they exchanged protocol bows that sealed the most important deal of his career. The figures were astronomical: $250 million for the development of the most exclusive residential complex in the American Southeast. Alex felt the adrenaline of success rushing through his veins. This project would not only consolidate his position as the most influential real estate magnate in New England, but would secure the financial future of 3 generations of his family. Leo could attend the best universities in the world. Layla could resume her career when she was ready, and he would have proven that his sacrifices were worth it. As the Japanese retreated to their chauffeured vehicles, Alex headed to his office to review the preliminary contracts Carol had prepared. The euphoria of the triumph kept him energized, despite the few hours of sleep the night before. His personal phone rang just as he was reviewing the investment clauses. The number was unfamiliar, but he decided to answer, thinking it might be a partner related to the project. Alex Thorne. Yes, this is me. Who is speaking? Mr. Thorne, I'm Clara Vega, a specialized neonatal care nurse. Your wife hired me to look after Leo this afternoon. Alex felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. His brain took several seconds to process the words he had just heard. Nurse. Layla had hired a nurse without consulting him. Excuse me, I don't understand. Where is my wife? Mr. Thorne, I think it would be best if you came home. Leo is perfectly fine, but I need to speak with you in person. The blood ran cold in his veins. What happened? Where is Layla? Sir, please remain calm. Your son is safe with me, but you really need to come home right now. Alex hung up the phone with trembling hands. His mind, which minutes before was celebrating the biggest business success of his life, was now a hurricane of panic and confusion. He grabbed his Aston Martin keys and rushed out of the office, ignoring Carol's shouts as she tried to remind him of the dinner with local investors scheduled for that night. The drive from Newberry Street to Beacon Hill had never seemed so long. Alex drove with controlled desperation, his mind generating increasingly terrible scenarios. Had Layla had a nervous breakdown? Had she suffered an accident? Why had she hired a nurse without telling him anything? He arrived at his building in record time and climbed the 3 floors to his penthouse using the stairs because the elevator seemed too slow. When he opened the door to his home, he found an older woman dressed in comfortable but professional clothes, gently rocking Leo in her arms. Mr. Thorne, I'm Clara Vega, the woman introduced herself with a serene voice. Leo has been quiet all afternoon. I fed him an hour ago, and he slept peacefully. Where is Layla? Alex asked, his voice sounding sharper than normal. Clara pointed towards the coffee table, where Alex saw a white envelope with his name written in his wife's elegant handwriting. Next to the envelope was another paper with detailed instructions for Leo's care and emergency contact numbers. With hands that trembled slightly, Alex took the letter and opened it. The paper carried the subtle scent of Layla's perfume, that floral fragrance he had associated with happiness since the day he met her. Alex, if you are reading this letter, it means Clara has already handed our son over to you, safe and sound. We planned this baby together, but I cannot do this alone. For these 3 weeks, I have tried in every way possible to make you understand that I need your real presence, not just your financial provision. I have tried to be patient, to adapt, to be the perfect wife who silently waits while you conquer the world. But I am losing myself, Alex. The woman you fell in love with, the architect who used to design buildings and change skylines, is fading into this routine of solitude disguised as perfect motherhood. You always wanted to be a father. Now is the time to prove that means truly being here, not just in convenient moments between meetings. I have traveled to Savannah for 5 days. Clara will stay with you until tomorrow morning to ensure the transition. But after that, Leo will be entirely your responsibility. I am not running away from our family. I am fighting for it. I love you more than words can express, and precisely because of that love, I need you to understand what it truly means to be Leo's father and my partner. I will return Sunday. I hope to find the man I married, not just the successful executive who has swallowed my husband. Layla. P.S. Congratulations on your success with the Japanese. I know the meeting went perfectly because you never fail at what truly matters to you. Now show me that we matter to you that way too. Alex read the letter 3 times before the words fully penetrated his consciousness. When he finally looked up, Clara was watching him with a sympathetic but firm expression. Your wife explained the situation to me, Mr. Thorne. She is a very intelligent woman who loves her family deeply. Alex collapsed onto the sofa, still holding the letter. In the space of 30 minutes, he had gone from the biggest professional triumph of his life to the most brutal wake-up call he had ever experienced. Leo began to cry softly in Clara's arms, as if sensing the emotional tension filling the room. "What am I supposed to do?" Alex murmured, more to himself than to Clara. "Learn to be the father your son needs," Clara replied gently, but uncompromisingly, "and the husband your wife deserves." The first night, the trial by fire. Clara had left barely an hour ago after showing Alex the basics of Leo's care, how to prepare the bottle with the breast milk Layla had pumped and frozen, how to change diapers correctly, the approximate feeding times, and, above all, how to recognize a newborn's different cries. "Babies cry for specific reasons, Mr. Thorne," Clara had explained with professional patience. "Hunger, sleep, a dirty diaper, gas, or simply needing contact. In time, you will learn to distinguish each one." Now, at 11 p.m., Alex was alone in his luxury penthouse with a 3-week-old baby who seemed determined to cry until dawn. Leo had eaten at 8 p.m. Following the instructions Layla had meticulously written, Alex had followed every step of the bottle preparation as if it were an industrial precision chemical formula. The perfect temperature, the exact amount. He had even timed the recommended 30 minutes for digestion before putting the baby down. But Leo had other plans. Alex walked the hallway connecting the living room to the master bedroom, rocking his son with clumsy but determined movements. His arms, accustomed only to carrying briefcases and signing contracts, felt strange, holding that tiny body writhing in discomfort. "Come on, champion," he murmured, using the affectionate nickname he had coined when Leo was born, but had rarely had the chance to use in private. "Daddy's here," but the word sounded foreign on his lips. When had he last been truly present for his son? Unhurried, undistracted, without the phone constantly vibrating with work matters. Leo intensified his cries, that high-pitched sound that cut straight through Alex's nerves like an emotional drill. He had changed the diaper twice, tried to give him more milk, and checked for a fever with the thermometer Layla kept in the bathroom cabinet. By 12:30 a.m., Alex was on the verge of desperation. His white designer shirt was stained with spit-up. His perfectly combed hair was now a mess, and for the first time in years, he felt completely out of control. He remembered Carol mentioning something about calling the nurse if he needed help, but he immediately dismissed the idea. This was his test, his chance to prove he could be the father Leo needed. He decided to call his mother, Mrs. Thorne, a 70-year-old woman who lived in an elegant apartment in Back Bay. His mother had raised 3 children virtually alone, while his father built the family construction business Alex had inherited and expanded. "Alex, are you all right?" His mother answered with an alarmed voice. "It's almost 1 a.m. Mom, I need help. Leo won't stop crying and I don't know what to do." There was a revealing silence on the other end, before his mother asked, "Where is Layla?" Alex hesitated for a moment. He couldn't explain the full situation to his mother without admitting he had failed as a husband. She's gone out for a few days. I'm alone with Leo." "Alexander Michael Thorne," his mother said, using his full name, as she did when he had done something wrong. "Are you telling me this is the first time you've cared for your son without help?" The question hit him like a slap of reality. "I've been very busy with work, Mom. You know how important this Japanese project is. Business doesn't raise babies, son." Listen carefully. For the next 30 minutes, his mother taught him techniques over the phone that Layla had likely discovered through instinct and experience. How to hold Leo against his chest so he could feel his heartbeat. How to make gentle rocking movements that mimicked the movement of the womb. How to create a calm environment by dimming the lights and eliminating loud noises. Talk to him, Alex. Babies recognize their parents' voices from the womb. Tell him something. Sing to him. Read to him. Alex felt ridiculous at first, but he began to tell Leo about the Nantucket project, about the glass skyscrapers that would rise by the sea, about the families who would live in those apartments overlooking the Atlantic. Gradually, Alex's voice became softer, more rhythmic, until it became a consoling murmur. To his amazement, Leo began to calm down. "Babies don't need you to be perfect," his mother continued over the phone. "They need you to be present, completely present." When Leo finally fell asleep in his arms, Alex felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and triumph. He remained still for several minutes, fearing that the slightest movement would wake his son. As he watched Leo's angelic face in the dim light of the hallway lamp, Alex began to understand something fundamental he had overlooked for 3 weeks. This small human being was not a project he could delegate, not a responsibility he could manage from a distance like his real estate investments. Leo was his son. His son needed not only financial provision, but emotional presence, real time, complete attention. At 2 a.m., when he finally managed to put Leo down in his crib without waking him, Alex walked to the study where Layla used to work on her architecture projects. On the desk, he saw half-finished blueprints, creative sketches, and a photograph of the two of them the day they had bought the penthouse. In the photograph, Layla smiled radiantly as he kissed her cheek, both holding the keys to their new home. They looked like a couple who had the whole future ahead of them, who had conquered the world together. When had he started living as if work were more important than the extraordinary woman he had chosen to share his life with? Alex picked up his phone and typed a message he knew Layla wouldn't read until morning. First night completed. "Leo is fine. I'm starting to understand. I love you." But before sending it, he deleted it. Words weren't enough. Layla didn't need empty promises sent from the comfort of a text message. She needed facts. She needed him to truly become the father and husband he had promised to be. Alex returned to Leo's room and settled into the armchair next to the crib, determined to spend the whole night there, watching his son sleep and beginning the most important transformation of his life, the 5-day transformation. The new definition of success. The second day began at 6 a.m. with Leo's cries echoing throughout the penthouse. Alex woke up in the armchair next to the crib with a backache that reminded him he was no longer 25. But for the first time in weeks, he had immediately heard his sons crying. Without needing Layla to wake him, he headed to the kitchen barefoot, still in the wrinkled shirt from the day before, to prepare the bottle. Following the instructions he now knew by heart. As he warmed the milk, he realized he had automatically canceled all his meetings for the day without even consciously thinking about it. Carol had called 3 times the night before, asking why he had missed the dinner with local investors, but Alex had sent his apologies by text without detailed explanations. For the first time in his career, business would have to wait. Leo calmed down after breakfast, but Alex soon discovered that caring for a baby did not consist of isolated feeding moments, but constant attention that required a completely different mental presence than he was used to in boardrooms. He tried to check emails while Leo slept in his arms, but every time he looked down at the screen, his son seemed to sense the distraction and began to fuss. Eventually, Alex closed the laptop and dedicated himself simply to watching Leo sleep. His son's face was a perfect mix of him and Layla. The deep blue eyes were undoubtedly his mother's, but the determined line of the jaw and the shape of the hands were a Thorne legacy. For the first time, Alex allowed himself to truly study those features, memorizing every detail, marveling at the miracle that this little being was part of him and the woman he loved. The second challenge came at bath time. Layla had left precise instructions, but the reality of holding a slippery baby in warm water while trying to clean him carefully was infinitely more complex than any business negotiation he had faced. Leo seemed to enjoy the water, gently splashing his tiny feet, and Alex found himself genuinely smiling for the first time in days. There was something deeply satisfying in those simple gestures. washing Leo's silky hair, drying his delicate skin, dressing him in the little blue pajamas Layla had carefully chosen. "You're stronger than you look, aren't you, champion?" Alex murmured as he buttoned the pajamas. "Just like your mom." The thought of Layla brought a pang of pain and nostalgia. Where was she at that moment? Was she thinking about them? Did she regret her decision? Or was she relieved to be away from the routine that had been smothering her? The third day brought an unexpected visit. Carol appeared at the door with a bag of groceries and an expression of maternal concern that Alex rarely saw in his efficient assistant. "Mr. Thorne, let me help you," she said, immediately noticing his disheveled appearance and the dark circles that now marked his face. "You can't live on coffee and crackers while caring for a baby." Carol took over the kitchen with her characteristic efficiency, preparing nutritious meals Alex could eat with one hand while holding Leo with the other. But more important than the food was the conversation that arose as she organized the chaos that had overtaken the penthouse. "You know, Mr. Thorne," Carol said, "in all the years I've worked for you, I've never seen you so present." Alex looked at her curiously as he rocked Leo, who was fighting his afternoon sleep. "Present," Carol repeated. "You have always been a successful man, but you were always mentally in the next meeting, the next project, the next challenge. Now, you are here, truly here." Those words resonated with Alex for hours after Carol left. When had he last been completely present in a moment, without mentally planning the next step, without checking his phone, without dividing his attention between multiple priorities? The answer made him uncomfortable. Possibly never, at least not since he had started building his business empire. That night, as Leo slept peacefully after a successful night feeding, Alex walked through his home, seeing it with different eyes. The elegant furniture, the carefully selected artworks, the panoramic view of Boston that had been the deciding factor in buying this penthouse. All of that had been important to him just a week ago. Now, the only thing that truly mattered was the small monitor he carried in his pocket to listen to Leo's breathing, and the hope that when Layla returned, she would find a different man from the one she had left. He paused in front of the hallway mirror and truly saw himself for the first time in days. His hair was disheveled. He had a 3-day beard. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, but his eyes had a different intensity. It was no longer the calculating gaze of the real estate magnate, but something deeper, more vulnerable, more human. Alex thought of the presentation to the Japanese investors, which now seemed like something that happened in another life. The success he had felt so intensely just 3 days ago had faded like smoke before the reality of holding his son in his arms all night when he had colic. His phone vibrated with a message from his senior partner. "Japanese are asking when we can sign the final contracts. Are you available tomorrow?" Alex stared at the message for several minutes before responding. "Occupied with urgent family matters. Reschedule for next week." It was the first time in his career he had postponed a contract signing for personal reasons. And strangely, he didn't feel anxiety, but a sense of priorities finally ordered correctly. He returned to Leo's room and settled into the armchair next to the crib. Tomorrow would be the 4th day. Only 2 more remained before Layla returned. 2 days to prove he had understood the most important lesson of his life. That being truly successful didn't mean conquering the business world, but being present for the people who mattered most. As he listened to Leo's soft, regular breathing, Alex felt something he hadn't experienced in years. A deep peace that didn't depend on any external achievement, but simply on being exactly where he needed to be. The test of fire and the final letter. The return. The 5th day dawned with a soft rain misting the panoramic penthouse windows, creating an intimate atmosphere Alex had learned to appreciate during those days of transformation. Leo had become his complete universe, and for the first time in his adult life, Alex experienced what it meant to live moment to moment, without the constant obsession with planning the future. He had developed a natural routine with his son, waking at 6 a.m., the morning bottle, playtime on the soft blanket Layla had placed on the living room floor, the mid-morning nap. Each activity required his complete attention, and Alex had discovered a profound satisfaction in that simplicity. As he prepared breakfast for Leo, his mind couldn't help but think of Layla. Tomorrow she would return. Tomorrow he would know if the transformation he felt internally was enough to repair the damage he had caused with his emotional absence. Would he be able to maintain this new version of himself when the pressures of work returned? Could he find the balance between being the provider his family needed and the present father Leo deserved? His mother had called every day to check how he was handling the situation, and Alex had noticed the growing pride in her voice. "You sound different, my son," she had told him the night before. "You sound like your father when you were a baby, before the business completely consumed him." That comparison had hit him like a flash of lucidity. His father had been a successful but absent man who had built a business empire at the cost of missing his children's childhoods. Alex had sworn not to repeat that pattern, but unknowingly, he had been following the exact same steps. At 11 a.m., while Leo slept peacefully in his crib, Alex decided to do something he hadn't done in years. Call his younger sister, Sophia, who lived in Providence with her 2 young children. "Alex, are you okay? You never call me without a specific reason," Sophia replied with obvious surprise. "I'm learning to be a father," Alex admitted, surprising himself with the vulnerability in his own voice. Sophia remained silent for a moment before asking softly, "Where is Layla?" Alex told her the complete story. The letter. Layla's decision to travel to Savannah. The 5 days he had spent alone with Leo. Sophia listened without interruption, and when he finished, his sister sighed deeply. "Layla is very brave," she finally said, "and very intelligent. You know Dad was never truly present for us, right? Mom raised us virtually alone." "I know, and I've been repeating the same pattern, but recognizing it is the first step to changing it." "How do you really feel taking care of Leo?" Alex reflected on the question while watching his son sleep. "At first it was terrifying, completely out of my control. But now I understand why Layla has been so in love with him since day one. It's impossible not to be completely present when a baby needs you." The conversation with Sophia reassured him, but also intensified his anxiety about Layla's return. Would it be enough to have learned to change diapers and prepare bottles? Or did she need to see deeper changes in his character, his priorities, his definition of success? At 2 p.m., when Leo woke up from his nap, with unusually intense crying, Alex immediately knew something was different. The crying was not due to hunger or sleep, but something more distressing that activated all his alarm instincts. Leo had a fever. The digital thermometer read 100.8 degrees, 38.2 degrees Celsius, and Alex felt as if the world were reeling beneath his feet. He had managed multi-million-dollar business crises with serenity, but the idea that something could be wrong with his son terrified him in a completely new way. He immediately called Dr. Rodriguez, the emergency pediatrician Layla had included in the contact list. The secretary told him the doctor was in surgery, but that he could take Leo to the emergency room or wait until 5 p.m. for a phone consultation. Alex didn't hesitate for a second. He wrapped Leo in a soft blanket, grabbed the diaper bag he had learned to prepare automatically, and headed for Boston Children's Hospital. During the taxi ride, with Leo crying weakly in his arms, Alex experienced a type of fear he had never known. It wasn't the calculated fear of losing a deal or facing fierce competition. It was a primitive, visceral terror that connected him with something fundamental in his human nature, a father's protective instinct. "Please, Leo, hold on," he whispered as the taxi navigated Boston traffic. "Daddy's here. Daddy won't leave you." In the pediatric emergency room, Alex became a completely different version of the real estate magnate who was known for his control and authority. He was simply a worried father, willing to do anything to ensure his son's well-being. The on-duty doctor, examined Leo with reassuring professionalism. "It's normal for babies to develop mild fevers during their first few weeks," she explained while checking his vitals. "Their immune system is adjusting to the outside world." "Are you sure he's okay?" Alex asked, unable to conceal the anxiety in his voice. "Completely sure. The fever is already coming down, and all his vitals are normal." "Are you a first-time father?" Alex nodded, feeling a mix of relief and vulnerability. "It shows," the doctor smiled understandingly. "But you did exactly the right thing, bringing him in immediately. That speaks very well of your paternal instincts." As they returned home in another taxi, with Leo calm and his temperature normalizing, Alex realized something fundamental. Throughout the crisis, he hadn't thought about work, meetings, or contracts, even once. His sole priority had been his son's well-being. It was exactly what Layla had been trying to show him for weeks. That night, as Leo slept peacefully after a day that had tested all his new paternal instincts, Alex sat in the armchair next to the crib and finally allowed himself to write the message he had been mentally composing for days. "Layla, you return tomorrow, and I cannot wait to see you. These 5 days have been the hardest and most important of my life. I have learned that being a father is not a title earned by providing, but a presence built moment by moment. I have learned that Leo doesn't need me to be perfect, but to be completely here. And I have learned that you were right. I can't do this alone, but not because I'm incapable, but because I want to do this with you as a team, as true partners. I love you more than I can ever express, and I hope you will give me the chance to show you that the man who returns to work Monday will be different from the one who left last Tuesday. Leo and you deserve nothing less than my best version." This time, he didn't delete the message. He sent it and stayed awake, waiting for a reply that he knew might not arrive until she was ready to talk face to face. Tomorrow would be the day of truth. The day of truth. The reconciliation. Layla slowly walked up the steps to her home, each step loaded with a mix of anticipation, nervousness, and hope that had grown during the 5 days in Savannah. Her sister Sophia had accompanied her to the train station that morning with words of encouragement. "You've been brave, Layla. Now see if Alex has been brave enough to change." It was 4 p.m. on Sunday, and Boston glowed under an October sun that turned the brick buildings into golden jewels. She carried a small travel suitcase and a heart divided between the hope of finding the man she had fallen in love with and the fear of discovering that nothing had truly changed. She had read Alex's message the night before, and every word had resonated in her soul with a sincerity she hadn't heard in months. But words were easy. The true test would be seeing if the transformation he described was genuine or merely a temporary reaction to a crisis. When she reached the door of her penthouse, Layla took a deep breath before using her key. She hadn't announced the exact time of her arrival. She wanted to see the reality without prior preparation, without performance. When she opened the door, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the tense silence that had characterized their home in recent weeks, but a deep, cozy calm. She left her suitcase by the entrance and walked softly inside. What she saw took her breath away. Alex was sitting on the living room sofa with Leo nestled against his bare chest, both asleep in a position that spoke of mutual intimacy and comfort. Her husband looked completely different. He had several days' beard, his hair was disheveled, and he wore only cotton pants, but it was his expression that moved her most deeply. Even asleep, his face showed a serenity she hadn't seen in years. On the coffee table were remnants of what appeared to have been lunch, a plate with pasta leftovers, a half-finished bottle, and, surprisingly, a baby care book open to a chapter on sleep routines. Layla approached silently and sat in the armchair opposite them, simply observing the image she had dreamed of but had never seen. Alex, completely present, completely relaxed, completely connected with his son. Leo opened his eyes first, as if sensing his mother's familiar presence. His small blue eyes fixed on her, and Layla saw a flicker of recognition that filled her with joy. Her baby had visibly grown in 5 days and seemed calmer, more secure. Leo's movement woke Alex, who slowly opened his eyes. When he saw Layla sitting across from him, his expression went through a sequence of emotions: surprise, joy, vulnerability, and something deeper she took a moment to recognize: gratitude. "Hello," Alex murmured, his voice hoarse with sleep but laden with emotion. "Hello," Layla replied, feeling that the words were inadequate for the moment, but the only ones she could utter. They looked at each other in silence for several seconds, Leo serving as a quiet bridge between them. Alex slowly sat up, careful not to fully wake his son. How was your trip?" Alex asked. "Clearly necessary," Layla replied honestly. "How were you two?" Alex looked at Leo and then back at her, and Layla saw a depth in his eyes that she had desperately missed. "They were the hardest and most revealing 5 days of my life," he said, with a sincerity that cut straight to Layla's heart. "I understood everything you had been trying to tell me. I understood what it means to be truly present." Layla felt tears threaten to spill, but she held back. She needed to see more. She needed to be sure. "Tell me," she said simply. For the next hour, Alex narrated every day. The initial panic, the call to his mother, the sleepless nights, the small discoveries, Carol's visit, Leo's fever crisis the day before. He spoke with a vulnerability Layla hadn't seen since the first months of their relationship, when they were both just 2 young professionals slowly falling in love. "The night Leo had a fever," Alex continued, "I realized something fundamental. Throughout the entire crisis, I didn't think about work, meetings, or contracts even once. Only he existed. Only protecting him, caring for him, making sure he was okay existed." Layla watched as Leo had completely relaxed in his father's arms, as if those arms were now a familiar and safe refuge. "And what happens when you go back to work tomorrow?" Layla asked, voicing the question that had been tormenting her during the return trip. Alex looked directly into her eyes. "I've been thinking about that constantly. I can't promise you it will be perfect, that there won't be struggles to find balance, but I can promise you that you will never be invisible to me again. Never again will our son be a project I delegate while I conquer the business world." He slowly stood up, walked toward her, and offered her Leo. When Layla took her son into her arms, she felt a completeness she had missed deeply. But she also noticed something different in the way Alex watched her. It was no longer the distracted gaze of the busy executive, but the complete attention of the man who had chosen her as his life partner. "Layla," Alex said, kneeling in front of her, "I know words aren't enough after everything I put you through, but I need you to know that these 5 days have taught me who I truly want to be, not just as a father, but as your husband." Layla felt her heart race. "And who do you want to be?" "I want to be the man who is present in the small moments, who knows Leo's schedule by heart because he lives it with you, who comes home and genuinely asks, 'How was your day?' because he truly wants to know, who understands that real success is not measured in signed contracts, but in our son's smiles and the peace in your eyes." Alex took her free hands in his. "I want to be your true partner in this parenting adventure. Not the silent provider, but your team." Layla studied his face, looking for any sign that this was a temporary performance motivated by the crisis. But what she saw was something that deeply reassured her. Alex had changed not only in his actions, but in his essence. There was a calm in him that did not come from having solved a business problem, but from having found his true place in life. "These 5 days were revealing for me too," Layla admitted. "I finally realized that not only did I need you to be present, but I needed to remember who I am beyond being a mother. I needed time to process that it's possible to be a dedicated mother without completely losing my identity." Alex nodded understandingly. "And what did you find?" "I found that I love you more than I ever thought possible, but that I also love myself enough not to accept less than I deserve. I found that I want to build a family with you, but as true partners." They looked at each other in silence, Leo sleeping peacefully between them, oblivious to the transformative moment unfolding around him. "Can we try again?" Alex asked, his voice laden with vulnerable hope. "Can we start from here, with what we've learned?" Layla felt her heart swell with a mixture of love, hope, and renewed determination. "Yes," she whispered, "but with new rules, with clear priorities, with the promise that Leo will grow up seeing a real marriage, not a business partnership." Alex smiled, and for the first time in months, Layla saw in that smile the man she had fallen in love with. Vulnerable, authentic, completely present. "Completely, I accept all conditions," Alex murmured, leaning in to kiss her softly. As their lips met, Layla felt she was kissing not the successful real estate magnate, but the father of her son, her true partner, the man she had been waiting for to return. 2 years later, the final test, the integrated life. 3 weeks after Layla's return, life in the Beacon Hill penthouse had found a completely different rhythm. It was a Monday morning, and Alex was in the kitchen preparing coffee for both of them, while Layla fed Leo in the living room sofa. The scene would have been impossible just a month earlier, when Alex was leaving the house before either of them woke up. "The Japanese confirmed the meeting for 10 a.m., Alex commented as he brought Layla her cup, but immediately added, "But I told them I have an unbreakable commitment at 12. Layla looked at him curiously. "What commitment?" Alex smiled with a mix of pride and shyness. "Leo's appointment with the pediatrician for his monthly checkup. And after, I thought we could have lunch together at that cafe you like near the Boston Common." It was a radical change that still surprised Layla. Alex had completely restructured his schedule to include family moments not as interruptions, but as genuine priorities. He had hired 2 senior associates to delegate less crucial meetings and had established clear boundaries about his availability after 7 p.m. The transformation had not been without challenges. The first days after the reconciliation had tested both their resolve in unexpected ways. Carol had initially expressed concern when Alex began rejecting business dinners and last-minute trips. "Mr. Thorne, clients might interpret this as a lack of dedication," she had warned. But Alex had responded with a conviction that surprised even his efficient assistant. "Carol, my dedication has never been in doubt, but dedication without balance is not sustainable. Clients who don't respect that are not clients. We want long-term." Surprisingly, Alex's renewed focus had resulted in better quality work. His decisions were more thoughtful, his negotiations more strategic, and his reputation as a focused, reliable executive had grown among his partners. The true test had come the second week when Hiroshi Tanaka had called from Tokyo, requiring an urgent presentation on a Saturday morning. The old Alex would have canceled any personal plans immediately. "Mr. Tanaka," Alex had said, with diplomacy but firmness, "I would be delighted to schedule that presentation for early Monday. Or if the urgency requires it, I can prepare a detailed report that we can review via video conference Sunday evening, Boston time." Layla had watched that conversation from the door of her study, where she had begun working again on selected architecture projects. It had deeply reassured her to see that Alex was not simply postponing his ambitious nature, but redefining what professional success meant. That same Saturday, instead of being in a conference room, Alex had taken Leo to the park, while Layla worked on the design of a public library for a town near Vermont. When they returned, Alex had enthusiastically described how Leo had reacted to the sounds of other children playing, as if it were the most important business achievement of the year. The transformation of their marital relationship had been equally revealing. The nightly conversations had returned, but with a new depth. They were no longer just logistical updates about schedules and responsibilities, but genuine exchanges about dreams, concerns, and visions for their family's future. "You know what surprises me most?" Layla had told him one night over dinner after putting Leo to bed. "It's not just that you're more present, it's that you seem happier." Alex had reflected on those words for days. She was right. The constant anxiety that had characterized his professional life had transformed into a deeper, more sustainable satisfaction. He remained ambitious. He continued to pursue excellence in his projects, but from a foundation of personal security he had never experienced before. That Monday morning, as he prepared for the meeting with the Japanese, Alex looked at himself in his dressing room mirror. He wore the same type of Italian suit that had always been his professional armor, but he felt completely different wearing it. It was no longer a mask he put on to conquer the business world, but simply the appropriate attire for the professional version of a man who had his priorities straight. "Nervous about the presentation?" Layla asked, appearing in the doorway with Leo in her arms. "Confident," Alex replied, leaning in to kiss his son's forehead. "We have a solid proposal. The numbers are exceptional, and if they approve the project, perfect. If not, there will be other projects." It was an attitude that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. Alex had learned that his worth as a person and a professional did not depend on winning every business battle, but on maintaining an integrity that honored all facets of his life. The Blackstone offer. The final choice. 2 years after the decision that changed the course of his life, Alex Thorne woke up not to the sound of alarms or corporate phones, but to the contagious giggles of Leo, who was now 2.5 and had discovered the marvelous ability to escape his crib, to venture through the penthouse. Alex opened his eyes to find his son standing by the bed, his blonde hair tousled and Layla's blue eyes shining with mischief, holding his favorite stuffed animal, a small architect with a yellow hard hat that Layla had specially designed for him. "Daddy, look!" Leo exclaimed with the adorably imperfect pronunciation of a toddler, proudly showing a teetering tower he had built with blocks on the bedroom floor. Alex sat up, took Leo into his arms, and examined the construction with the seriousness of a professional architectural consultant. "That's a very innovative structure, Architect Leo," he said solemnly. "Could you explain the design concept to me?" Leo launched into an enthusiastic explanation in his mixture of English and made-up linguistic inventions, gesticulating dramatically, while Alex listened with the complete attention he reserved for the most important presentations of his career. Layla appeared at the door, radiant in a lavender silk robe, a cup of coffee in her hand, and a smile that lit up the entire room. At 31, she had fully regained her professional and personal confidence. Her architecture firm had grown considerably. She had just won the competition to design a cultural center in Providence, and her sustainable housing projects had been featured in specialized magazines throughout North America. "Your son definitely inherited the building gene," she commented, sitting on the bed beside them. "Yesterday, he built a bridge with my architectural scales and Alex's design magazines." Alex laughed, kissing Leo's forehead and then Layla's lips. "You know what? I think this weekend we should take the little architect to see the Nantucket project. It's finished, and the first families have moved in." The Nantucket residential complex had been a resounding success, winning several sustainable architecture awards and becoming a model for responsible coastal development. But for Alex, the true success of the project wasn't in the international accolades, but in the happy families who now called those apartments overlooking the Atlantic home. During the 2 years since the Blackstone offer, Alex's life had found a balance he had never imagined possible. His firm had grown sustainably, focusing on high-quality local projects rather than aggressive international expansion. He had developed a reputation as the go-to developer for projects that balanced commercial excellence with familial and environmental responsibility. Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons were sacred, exclusive time with Leo. Alex had discovered that those hours not only strengthened his paternal bond, but also sharpened his professional creativity. Some of his best design ideas had emerged while building sandcastles with his son or pushing him on the swings at the Boston Common. Friday nights were reserved for Layla. They dined at intimate restaurants, visited art galleries, or simply stayed home discussing their respective projects. Alex had learned to be a genuinely interested consultant in Layla's work, and she had found in him not only a loving husband, but an intellectual collaborator who enriched her architectural ideas with practical development perspectives. Carol had masterfully adapted Alex's schedule to his new life philosophy. Clients had come to respect his time limits, and many commented that his balanced approach made them feel more confident in the long-term stability of their investments. Mr. Thorne is a developer you can trust because he has his priorities straight, a Swiss investor had commented during a recent presentation. A man who values his family will also value his partner's investments. That Saturday morning, while having breakfast on the terrace overlooking Boston, with Leo building cereal towers on his plate, Alex reflected on the path that had led them there. "You know what I was thinking?" he said to Layla, as Leo chased a butterfly among the terrace plants. "What?" 2 years ago, when I received that letter from you, I thought my world was collapsing. Now I realize it wasn't collapsing. It was rebuilding on stronger foundations. Layla took his hand across the table. "Do you ever regret it? Do you ever wonder what life would have been like with Blackstone?" Alex looked at Leo, who had found a monarch butterfly and was observing it with the scientific fascination of a small explorer. "Never," he replied without hesitation. "Blackstone would have given me buildings on 3 continents, but this," he pointed to Leo and then to her, "this has given me a life in one home that is worth more than any business empire." Leo ran toward them with the butterfly carefully protected in his small hands. "Daddy, Mommy, look at my friend!" Alex carefully lifted him up, examining the small creature with all seriousness. "She's beautiful, Leo. What's your friend's name?" "Hope," Leo announced triumphantly. Alex and Layla exchanged meaningful glances. Hope, perfectly appropriate for the child who had completely transformed their definitions of priority, success, and happiness. That afternoon, while visiting the Nantucket complex, Alex watched Leo run along the beach, while Layla photographed architectural details for an article she was writing on sustainable coastal development. The Atlantic sparkled under the spring sun, and the apartments he had designed rose elegantly against the blue sky. An older gentleman approached them. It was Mr. Garcia, one of the first residents of the complex. "Mr. Thorne, I wanted to thank you personally," the man said with evident sincerity. "My wife and I have been dreaming of a place like this for our retirement for 30 years. You didn't just build apartments. You built a place where families can be truly happy." As they returned to Boston that night, with Leo sleeping in his car seat and Layla resting her head on Alex's shoulder, he reflected on Mr. Garcia's words. He had built more than apartments. He had built spaces for families to flourish, and in the process, he had learned to build his own family in a way that honored both his professional ambitions and his personal commitments. His phone vibrated with a text message. It was from Richard Blackstone. Thorne saw the Nantucket article in European Development Quarterly. Impressive work. Ever consider international consulting on flexible family terms? Alex smiled, but didn't reply immediately. He had a policy of not checking work messages during family time, a rule he had religiously maintained for 2 years. Instead, he looked in the rearview mirror at Leo, who slept with his little architect plushie hugged against his chest, and then at Layla, who had opened her eyes and was smiling at him with that expression of absolute contentment he had learned to recognize as the most reliable indicator that he was living correctly. "What are you thinking about?" Layla murmured. "That 2 years ago, I wondered if I was making the right choice by choosing family over career. Now I understand. It was never a choice between one thing or the other. What was it then?" Alex stopped at a traffic light and turned to look at her fully. It was a choice between living a divided life or living an integrated life, between being successful in isolated segments or being successful as a complete human being. When they arrived home and tucked Leo into bed, Alex and Layla sat on the terrace with glasses of wine, watching the Boston lights spread before them like a map of endless possibilities. "You know what I love most about our life now?" Layla asked. "What?" "That I don't feel like I'm competing with your work for your attention. I feel like we are partners in everything. In raising Leo, in our careers, in building something beautiful together." Alex kissed her softly. "It's because I finally understood that work and family don't have to be opposing forces. They can be part of the same vision of a life lived." That night, as he drifted off to sleep with Layla nestled against his side, and the monitor from Leo's room whispering softly, Alex felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had found his true place in the world. He was not the international magnate he had imagined being at 35. He was something better, a present father, a true husband, a respected professional, and a man who had learned that the most lasting success is measured not in the buildings you construct for the world, but in the life you build for the people you love. The next day, he would answer Blackstone's message. Maybe there were consulting opportunities that could work within his new definition of balance. Or maybe not. Either way, he was fine, because he had learned that the truly important opportunities are not the ones that require you to sacrifice who you are, but the ones that allow you to be more completely the person you are meant to be. Conclusion and final. Call to action. In a world where professional success often seems to require sacrificing personal life, do you believe it is possible to find an authentic balance, or do you always have to choose between ambition and family? What truly defines a successful life for you? Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your reflections in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you liked the story, subscribe to our channel and leave a comment telling us what you thought. Your comments and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.